Hi everyone, and I've got a short one today just to dispel something that's associated with INFPs that I believe is incorrect. I see it come up on a pretty regular basis, and I have skirted the topic in the past. I think it's probably time to address it. So, when people think of the MBTI personality type of INFP, it's generally associated with this ooh-woo, cute cinnamon roll, puppies and kittens and candy canes and teddy bears and ponies and all that stuff that's cute and you just want to pinch its cheeks, and isn't that just so delightful? Well, that's the 16 personalities stereotype. To get to the more complete spectrum of those who lead with FI and NE, that is, at least, and again, in my own opinion, more interested in the entire spectrum of human nature, to understand the things that bring the light, so to speak. You have to get to the seamy underbelly. You have to see the darkest pieces of human nature as well. And well, I wouldn't say that I would immerse myself in those darkest pieces. Touching upon it, understanding it, gaining a familiarity from it is somehow important. And so I'll bring out a couple of examples of just some of these things that are spiky topics that I would see someone who's a Jungian INFP potentially get into, maybe not bring up in a public forum, but these are kind of part of what makes them more complete. And that's, for example, some of the stuff I've been looking at YouTube over time have been a lot of sovereign citizen things and know your rights for First and Second Amendment, people who open carry and then take videos and post all of that on YouTube. And the reason for that is to see these altercations of different schools of thought and social and philosophical or ideological conflict that has the potential to turn into physical conflict. So you have, in some cases, someone who believes they're justified, as in some of these First, Second, Third Amendment rights advocates. And on the other hand, you have some people who may, depending on your point of view, be somewhat deluded about what is real and is not, such as believing that there is a secret set of laws that someone can somehow access that bypass the laws that the US has in place by saying certain key words, for example. So this is to understand the nature of conflict, but it gets somewhat darker still, and I'll go back to something that's beyond the statute of limitations, and that is, for instance, in college, I knew a group that was nicknamed the Wrecking Crew, and those three and affiliates did all sorts of stuff that probably people shouldn't do. And yet I wouldn't say I was friends with that group, but certainly friendly, and we would have some interesting just discussions about their perspectives on things and things that they've done, and again, they would be potentially reprehensible stuff: vandalism, theft, destruction of property, you name it. Probably assault was in there somewhere, but it was not for me to judge those particular things, but rather to understand what was the nature of the underlying discontent, the underlying motivation that created this kind of critical mass of the college students with whom I went to school with, who had some of these perspectives. And to bring up yet another example, I was one of the things that I've long considered doing is, because I do a lot of road cycling, necessarily here out in the countryside, I come across more than my fair share of, some of the disastrous consequences of having fast-moving vehicles at all hours of the day and night, going across asphalt roads where there's a lot of wildlife. So, short way of putting it, I've been tempted to bring along my cell phone and just start taking pictures of all the roadkill that I come across in some sort of odd repository or collection that might eventually be some sort of an artistic statement, or a statement in general. I don't know that there's any artistry involved. I'm not, I wouldn't consider myself creative in that means. It's just witnessing what has happened. And I haven't gotten around to it for many different reasons, even though I keep thinking about it over the years. Some of the reasons being plainly most people just don't want to see it, they don't want to think about it. But also, I would think that if it were ever to become anything public, people would misconstrue that I was some sort of a social justice warrior trying to make some statement about cars being terrible or people being terrible or something, which isn't really the case. It's, as with some of these other things, a matter of bearing witness and looking to understand or evaluate and continue the evaluation and share that evaluation of what these signs of our, what these footprints or tire treads of our civilization mean. And so anyway, this is the sort of stuff that is just part of what I see as being an FI and any lead INFP. It's some sort of an aspect of Mapplethorpe, if for those people who are old enough to remember that controversy. It's not necessarily participating physically in these sorts of activities, but it's the understanding the mental headspace and having somehow to exist in that space to understand what the motivations and what the perspectives are in order to understand the entire scope of what humanity is all about. Anyway, this is kind of one of the tells that I would say, if you're just into all of the kind of sweet, cute things, and that's the driver for looking at the INFP personality type, that would make you an MBTI INFP, and that's kosher. But the Jungian FI in any lead has this press to understand the scope of it, to understand the far right and the far left, and the extreme points of view, where they come from politically, evangelical religion, humanitarianism or humanism, or atheism, and how those different perspectives all kind of pour together and maybe are similar or different from one another, and so on down the line. One of the other kind of odd things is that I ended up in our particular part of the country, I ended up advocating for cannabis legalization, not because I'm a cannabis advocate. There were some very specific reasons for it, but I engaged and wanted to engage with those people who were opposed to understand the viewpoints and the concerns. So I really don't have that much against opposing viewpoints, even from viewpoints that the majority would find reprehensible. It's more just understanding the entirety of the scope of human nature. So I will leave it there, but it is one of these things. I apologize. I've probably said some horrible stuff that people are going to get offended at. I don't mean to offend. I just want to speak truth to this on some topics that I usually wouldn't bring up because, well, I don't think that's the sort of thing that people generally want to hear. But it is part of the whole. It's intrinsically part of the whole. So anyway, there you have it. I will leave you be, and thanks again for listening. Bye for now.